every series, the main character always has, I just refer to it, the main character power. They're always going to have something extra, hype about whatever their abilities are. They're the main character. You're seeing it from their point of view, from the reason. They're the focus for a reason. There has to be something important about them for them to obviously, be this big, very huge centerpiece of the story. So, with Build King, I thought it'd just be at the start, Tonkaichi is really strong, and then we found out the Vigor Hammer was from Shovel, so it's he's got this tool from, a super high level character, so it's well, maybe that will involve it, and then we found out from Smith that he has, he actually has a lot of vigor, and the reason that his buildings were so bad is because the materials he was using couldn't handle the amount of vigor he was putting into it, because he didn't have control over the raw amount of vigor that he would dispense. And then we, got the explanations of the vigor power kind of system. We saw the basic 8. We see the rainbow vigor and stuff. Who knows how many there are in total, but at least have an understanding to a degree of vigors, vigor as a power system. On top of that, we were told that unless you hit a nail mold with a special vigor, it's not going to kill them. It can knock them out, but it's not going to kill them. Then we saw the one that Tonkaichi hit being dead. We've seen that, that Haka and the people of Satan Hills, their primary targets are Tonkaichi and Renga. Tonkaichi being the main focused one, and then that bald, short guy with the mask on made comments about the Build Kings making their move in the last chapter when Tonkaichi was going to flex up. So we had all these pieces all connecting up into this point. Now, when it came to Tonkaichi's, special vigor, my guess, because Renga was also one that they were focusing, so Renga has to have some special vigor as well, and based off of the explanation that we were given, it makes sense that he's going to have one. So, the vigor, I'm guessing, what I guess, I was okay, it's either going to be black and white or gold silver, just because it's got to be something that's kind of combos together, a pair, gold and silver, black and white, and the two sets that, made sense to me, something like black and white, just because it exists outside of the color spectrum, because black and white aren't really colors, they're actually shades, because every color, if you either keep going up in brightness or down in the dark aspect of it, it's going to become black or white. So that made sense to me, and then Tonkaichi's hair being black had some form of what I thought would be a potential error, because in Toriko, there was colored cells and stuff, gourmet cells, and unfortunately the series got rushed near the end, so Shimabukuro didn't get expanded upon that aspect that much, and I was okay, well maybe he's gonna take the ideas he didn't get to use and rework them into Build King. And one of the things about it is the main character Toriko, his hair is blue, but it originally was black, but it was because of his gourmet demon stuff with his how his powers worked and stuff. It made his hair blue. So I was wondering, well, maybe that'll be a thing with Tonkaichi. The other thing was gold and silver, and one of the reasons Tonkaichi's outfit, he's got the red and yellow, red and yellow can make gold, you can combine the colors, and then Renga's hair being silverish in color, so that made sense to me as well. But, we got confirmation this chapter of what it is, but we don't know exactly what it does. And the only thing that we can kind of look at it now is where it came from, that being 2x4. So I'm guessing that 2x4 might have similar vigor to the Build Kings, because he's the only one that we know of in the whole series that that apparently has destroyed a Build King, and everything else hasn't even affected them. Because one of the things about the Build Kings is they don't age, they're unaffected by their environments and everything. That means no monsters or natural disasters. We saw the huge hurricane and type big maelstrom, not maelstrom, that's in the water, just kind of because hurricane, not typhoon. I think it's hurricane. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. The one that was around Hammer Island, they said was so massive and powerful it could alter the topography of the entire continent. So the general craziness of being in that world already is huge. So something the Build King would have to be able to completely just shrug off anything from what the environment and creatures can dispense. So it makes sense of, one, the craziness of 2x4, and then Tonkaichi's main character power aspect, because, he's apparently got the one power that can, affect Build Kings, and if he ever gets to be that strong. But on top of that, the thing that I'm wondering is exactly how that's going to work out, 2x4's origin, because I've mentioned it before in in the chapter we found out about like it being 2x4, because in the one shot there was only one Build King, and that was a living house named 2x4, and I can't remember what they were called exactly. I think they were called house animas, and it was like the idea is like they still had the building aspect in the world, but it was like a high level builder, like they can essentially make their masterpiece house, and then it like takes all their life force and it brings it to life. And the main one, 2x4, was the Build King. It was like the highest of these. So I'm wondering if maybe that's a similar way of what happened with 2x4, is maybe whoever had like that rare super mega gold vigor was able to do something to make 2x4 that powerful, and that led up into Tonkatchi and Renga getting this extremely rare vigor from 2x4. Which actually is really cool, because I like the general idea that started with, like, Tonkatchi had a lot of vigor. Like, that was just a natural aspect to him, similar to I would assume Renga has a lot of vigor as well. Like, they have to be special if they were handpicked by Shovel to be apprentices. But on top of that, the aspect about them that's going to make them big in the series comes from an event that happened early on. Like, the whole part with Tonkatchi, like, pretty much repairing 2x4, powering it up and stuff, and then obviously that leading to 2x4 liking him, means that he got his whole main character power essentially from, just being a good guy in like this whole setup of the world, because the whole materials and aspect of it, or like when he's like talking about him, it comes from more of a sign of innocence and whatnot. But when it comes to the house beasts in general, they're living creatures, so them being nice to the house beasts, would be like being friendly to animals and stuff and whatnot, like other people. And there's definitely intelligence within them, so I like that Tonkatchi was just kind to it in general. Like the house beasts are pretty much kind of like mimics, but instead of chests, they're houses and stuff. But I really liked that moment early on. But the chapter itself was real hype. Like, Tonkatchi at the end of the last chapter was getting flexed up. He was getting pissed off about, getting caught in Haka's red and brown vigor, the one that made it so he couldn't move. And he just, he flexes and is able to break it. And then he's just like, tell me where Renga is now. And he's like walking up to him. He's got his hammer out. He's ready to smash this dude. He looked badass. Like, I really like the back and forth of the art style. I've mentioned this before about Tonkatchi. It reminds me a lot of Charmy. But like how he'll go from like this more small, kind of sillier style in the art where he looks a little bit more cartoony. And then you get like when he's serious, muscles popping out, he looks a lot taller, he looks way more serious. It just looks cool. I like that aspect about Tonkatchi's character in general. But Haka goes to use his move 6 down. He's pretty much, he's using all of his vigors at the same time to shoot at Tonkatchi. And normally, that would work on somebody. Tonkatchi obviously like has gold vigor. He's got a special vigor, so he's able to break through it. And it's apparently not only is it like a different vigor, but it's like a super clearly big in the world. There's definitely not going to be a lot of gold vigor people, but he's just hammer doesn't stop. He covers Tonkatchi in his 6-colored vigor, and then hammer's still coming. He's got to dodge it. Falls down. Tonkatchi is just shattering the crystallized vigor that's covered him. It's just falling off. He is not having that. And he just looks badass. I really like the display that he's just putting there. A little bit of fear in Haka. Not like, oh no, I can't do anything. But he can definitely tell that Tonkatchi is not going to be an easy opponent. He's going to have to beat Tonkatchi with like straight stats and like actual combative abilities. Like him trying to use like vigor techniques, trying to use like crazy combo hacks is not going to work. He's got to go in there and actually fight him one-on-one. But we got also jump over to what's going on with Konoichika and Renga, fighting Megumi. I thought that was cool too, because I would have really liked to focus more on Tonkatchi, because obviously this is a big Tonkatchi reveal chapter. But luckily, the stuff that they also peered over was super hype in general, because the whole welding tool that Konoichika had to be really hype, just the way that he hinted at the end of the last chapter. One of my cats is going off. Excuse me, I'm making a video right now. I'm almost done with this, and I gotta go take care of them. They're busy. I really want some attention right now. Of course, this is why I'm getting this hype freaking Build King video. Anyway, you have him bring out his like welding tool, and we have this introduction of these things, troll tools, and essentially it's like It's like pretty much it's like a super vigor tool. Like you already had the vigor tool, you know, you're putting your vigor into it to get whatever power and effects it has. But these ones are way more like there's a higher energy cost, but also way higher yield. But on top of that, they like can mess with your mind. And Koni Chica has like this kind of super aggressive. He's got like almost like a zebra type look going on with him. Like he's got this pupilless look in his eyes. He's got this monstrous grin, and I really liked the display of it. Like when it came out, because he's essentially got like arc welding. It looks kind of like lightning how it's coming out, and he just completely no divs Megumi. I mean, actually no. I mean, he definitely took a lot of effort because he's like sweating and stuff. The only concern I have is like Megumi like mentions that like even a small amount can shave years off his life. But that really depends, because, you know, it could easily be that, like, people with vigor live way longer than normal people, so they just have, like, a much bigger pool. Maybe it's something that he'll have to, like, figure out at some point. Maybe there's a way to replenish your vigor. I don't know. There's still aspects we don't know. You know, it could easily come down to that. It would be really hard if it's, like, normal lifespan and there's no way to replenish your vigor, so you only have so many uses of this thing in general. But it is really powerful, so, I mean, like, that does balance it somewhat. But, like, Koni Chica's existence would be so limited in the series if that was the case for him. It was really cool just to see it dispensed. Like, he's got, again, like, this cool lightning vigor, so it, like, you know, zaps out and then completely coats Megumi, just covers him in the crystallized vigor, and he's just done. GG right there. And that's when you have one of those big building creatures show up from St. Hills. I think it's the main one. It's got, like, the weird tendrils. And it's got like this sick skull design to it. I really like the designs of like all. I say like just the house beasts. You can just prefer them specifically, but also these guys. What do they call them again? I'm looking at it. Build soldiers. They're essentially like artificial house beasts. It's kind of like how Toriko had the Nitro and then the GT Robo, which were made in homage and kind of like idea of the Nitro, but they're not the same. Whereas like the house beasts are the natural versions, and the build soldiers, you know, are artificial. But it looks cool in general. Like I really like the designs, and the way that they describe it. On top of that, they're like saying how they're designed by the owner of St. Hills, and they're different from house beasts because instead of it being live, they're operated by resident. Think of it as kind of essentially like a mech. And they mentioned this guy, the second master carpenter of the Carpenters, Bill Carpenter. And he's the owner of St. Hills, but he's the second master. So I'm wondering if that means he's the second person to hold the title, or he's ranked number 2. He looks cool. I mean, he's got like this pretty devilish like unibrow, which is funny because like Megumi had a unibrow, but he looks silly with it. Like he's where I think a lot of unibrow characters would kind of fall under it. Unibrow that's hard to pull off. This guy Bill definitely pulls off like a cool unibrow. And he's got these sick mutton chops that goes into a mustache. He's got this evilish beard. He also has he's got this symbol on his jacket that looks like the vigor like thing, like the whole vigor display, but it's got more spots to it than the 8. Like there's at least 10 I think on here. No more than that. There's like 12 I think. So maybe like there's 8 is like the basic, 12 is like an advanced or something, or maybe that just has something to do, you know, with their setup. But like they all look different colors, like each of the spikes. So I don't know. Then we get like more of the description essentially of the Build Kings, aspects of the Build Kings, because he's saying like since the discovery of the Build Kings, homes are no longer just places to live in. Build Kings, who are impervious to any attack, are said to harbor a vigor capable of destroying the world. Because again, the fact that they're made with vigor and they're able to, you know, fight off any of the, you know, the natural disasters and stuff in the world, any monsters, people can't destroy them if they wanted to. That vigor in it has to be extremely powerful. So it's weird. It's like, think of kind of like a nuke, but like a nuke-lined building where like the nuke powers it almost, and it's like a way to harness it. I would assume the Build Kings also have the Build Kings. I would assume maybe in concept to them could also maybe transform and become something kind of like the Build Soldiers or House Beasts or something, or just in general having them. They have to have more of them than just being buildings. But I mean, even if it was just like you had the base, then you have essentially an indestructible base that, you know, good luck trying to fight. Because I would assume any environment that a Build King is in is going to be a really dangerous environment. So you'd have to overcome the environment to even get to where the base is. But on top of that, if you can harness the vigor inside of the Build King, the thing that powers it up, then you have this unrivaled power in their world. The only thing in it that is above that is 2x4 and whatever the mysteries of 2x4 is. But he's saying if someone were to live inside of a Build King, it would be easy to take over the world. Again, like I said, if they're able to harness the power that it holds, then you essentially have the greatest power in the world. The only thing above that being 2x4. They're saying a strong house is a symbol of domination, which I can understand that as well. Because one of the things I really like about Shimabukuro is he takes the concepts of the series, and they're odd, but he's able to look at it more of baseline the concepts of them. You look at Toriko, it was about food, but when it came down to a lot of the battles in Toriko, it was set on this primal urge to eat and to feast like animals do. Because think about animals will fight to the death over some food if they're hungry enough, and it really comes down to the competition between them and another animal of getting what they want. And similar to that in Toriko, houses are what humans obviously had to construct in order to fight back against the environments and wildlife and stuff. And he's saying whereas Tonkatchi sees them as a symbol of peace, something that can kind of create this tranquil lifestyle, Haka's looking at more of dominating the environment, dominating things around it. I think is again a really cool way that they view things in their world, and I've always really liked that about Shimabukuro. But at the same time, he's saying how, and you just happen to come in contact with a certain house beast, obviously referring to 2x4, that has unbelievable vigor, and he's saying that Tonkatchi and Renga unwittingly received vigor from it as a gift, and that being Tonkatchi's gold vigor. And I really want to see what it does. It's got to have a crazy effect, because the thing that's also really cool about vigors is the fact that they have both a offensive and defensive aspect to them. When you look at something like Orange Vigor applies a heat resistance, to stuff you put it into. Use it offensively, it's going to have heat-based abilities, whether you can have friction, fire, lava, stuff, anything like that, and anything along those lines. So whatever gold is going to be, it's going to have multiple features to it. At least a defensive and offensive thing, like I said. So I like the way that Tonkatchi looks with it too. I've always really liked when you have, the artists trying, when they do stuff like gold and silver or any kind of very reflective, shiny metal and stuff. They always just have that different kind of tint to the way they draw them, but also the way that the cool glittery sparkles look around him in general when he's in that. I can't wait to see how it looks when Tonkatchi's utilizing it. Will he put the gold vigor crystallize on his hammer and maybe have some sick big golden hammer he strikes down on somebody? It's definitely super hype. Like I said, I've been enjoying Build King. I think this has been a lot of really good just build up over the last couple chapters, and Shimabukuro has really done a good job at connecting multiple pieces to lead into this reveal. Like I mentioned, you had the stuff with general stuff about everything around his hammer and his vigor amount, the vigor power system, the different kinds of vigor, and then the stuff about the Build Kings, and now this. So we're going to see, I would assume in the next chapter, the description of what Gold Vigor does, and exactly how Tonkatchi is going to use it. It's got to be something crazy. The fact that it's from the Build Kings means it has to be something ridiculous. Maybe something that Tonkatchi destroys can't be fixed, or something that Tonkatchi buffs can't be weakened or something. I don't really know. It's got to be something wild like that if it's something that goes into the Build Kings. So, again, it was a fun chapter. Unfortunately, it was a very fast-read chapter, but I've already read this chapter probably 3 to 4 times. And it's because the paneling in it was good, the information was really good, the reveal was super hype. I saw some people talking about this the spoilers of this chapter beforehand, but I didn't see any. They were just mentioning Gold Vigor. I didn't see anything about where they were getting the information from or what, or any panels or any descriptions that were legit. It was just them talking about. So I was like, well, I hope it's revealed, and we got more hints at it. We didn't, and I was like, man, I really hope that they were actually speaking from something that was true, and I didn't have to go another week without at least knowing what color his vigor was. And literally in the very last page, in the very last panel, we have Haka saying it's Gold Vigor. So I'm definitely hyped to see where this goes. I really want to see how it's utilized and how Tonkatchi just generally puts it out there, how he's going to be in the first descriptions of how Gold Vigor works. Got another week for that. But again, I've been very thoroughly hyped and put in a good spot to wait for the next chapter. But anyway, other than that though, comment below. Tell me your thoughts about this. Because I would assume if Tonkatchi's is gold, that Renga's is going to be silver, which then we're going to have to also see what Silver Vigor ends up doing. Because like Tonkatchi and Renga up until this point, we don't know about Renga yet, but Tonkatchi has only been using Vigor in the general usage of it, just kind of like putting it in his Vigor hammer, and then like the way that it just kind of makes him physically stronger and more durable and whatnot, and obviously like how he trained and stuff up into this point. But this is the first time he's actually crystallized his Vigor, which is really hype, and he's just got like a layer over him in the on the last page. So I can't wait to see him weaponize it. Again, I would love to see like his hammer go out, and then maybe that first hammer we saw, I don't know exactly what it's called. You know, the one that kind of looks like a horn. It's got the one flat side and then the spike on the back. We see it in the first chapter. But like maybe that, but out of gold Vigor would be really cool. But anyway, other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, click the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, appreciate everyone's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening.